Okay, good morning and welcome to the Thursday Thread. My name is Andy Lockwood and joined by my pal, CPA business guru and mentor, Mr. Neil Guilmette. Good morning, Neil.
Morning, Andy. How are you today?
Doing great. So you're going to take the reins today and talk to us about what today's topic is to help CPAs make more, keep more, and enjoy their quality of life.
Absolutely. Interesting thought. Some people know about it, some don't. But we're all in business to make as much profit as we possibly can. And as I've said many times, for every dollar you put on your top line, only a few cents falls to your pocket. But every profit leak that you plug, every dollar that you plug in profit leaks, a dollar falls into your pocket. So focusing on plugging profit leaks is one of the big keys to profitability. Now, the best place to find profit leaks is your throughput process. And for those of you asking, what the hell is a throughput process? Every business has a throughput process. If we had a widget factory, we would take in raw material at one end. It would go through a bunch of steps and processes and come out as a bright, shiny little widget that we could sell for a profit at the other end. The process of going from raw material to finished product is the throughput process. Now, I've had some accountants say to me, well, we're not a factory, we're a professional firm. And I look at them and say, did you hear what I just said? We take raw material in this way, in this end, and we put a finished product out the other end. And that's different from a CPA firm. How? It's not. It's just not different. But the key to success with the throughput process is not just for your CPA business. It's also a place for you to bring real value to your client's business. And your profitability is limited by the bottlenecks in the throughput process. So the key is identify the bottlenecks. You've identified the profit leak. Fill the profit leak. Profits go up. Staff frustration goes down. Burden of management goes down. And the company increases in its value because there's another process in place to make it more profitable. So let's start out with, how do you find bottlenecks? Well, this is something that's interesting in the accounting profession in many ways. I've often had partners in many accounting firms, I should say. There's a large chasm between partners and staff. It's polarization. The partners talk to senior managers, or managers, and the managers talk to senior managers, and senior managers talk to seniors and juniors, and the partners never talk to the people at the bottom of it. So the place to find profit leaks is to get down and talk to the troops that are in the trenches, and ask them, what are the things that drive you crazy? What are the things that frustrate you in trying to do your job? What are the things that get in the way of you being as efficient as possible? And let me tell you, they will know what's keeping them from being efficient. They will know the things that are blocking them. And all you have to do is listen and take notes and start sniffing around. And just from those beginnings, you will find all sorts of bottlenecks to the throughput process. So in looking at the throughput process, most accounting firms don't bother to do anything about it. So what you need to do is take a look at your client firm, or take a look at your own firm, and put a line on a piece of paper. Let's get back to doing it the simple, old-fashioned way, with pencil and paper, if anybody still has any of that. And start with the beginning. Where is the stuff coming in to the factory? And that's very often a big profit leak in a CPA firm. I was on with a firm yesterday that I work with, and one of the biggest profit leaks they have are clients who are late or reluctant or non-compliant in providing them with the information they need to do tax returns. And there's a magnifier effect. First of all, it takes us X number of hours to do a tax return. If we also have to spend 3 hours chasing the information that we need for the tax return, we can't bill that. All right. So we end up with an extra 3 hours per return where we have to chase the information. That means you have an accounting person who makes their money for you doing accounting work, getting on the telephone and chasing down work that can be done by clerical people or shouldn't have to be done at all. So the solution to that problem is simple. You need to grab a hold of the perspicacity to challenge those clients who are not cooperating. Uncooperative clients are a huge profit leak in the accounting world. And what you need to do is you need to use controlled conversation versus casual conversation to turn them around. Now, the managing partner of the firm that I spoke with yesterday got an attitude. And he says, so you mean we're just supposed to fire those clients?
Great. It sounds great to me.
I said, well, that's the second step. All right. The first step is let's convert them and have them pay us more money, which again raised, they don't want to pay more money. Those clients don't want to pay more money. I said, it's all in how you say it.
Right.
It's using the right words, using precision of language, and using a process to bring those clients into an awareness that makes them want to give you more money. And if you don't know how to do it, you're going to be frustrated every time. And that's why no one wants to make those phone calls. You don't, your partners don't want to make those phone calls to the clients that we're going to charge you more money. And that's part of the other workshop we've already done, which is about fees and fear of fee. There's no such thing as client fee pressure. There's only CPA fee pressure. Because the CPAs don't have the guts to say what they need to say to get the fees they want, because they're so afraid that if they ask the clients for more money, the client's going to find another account. Well, that's true in maybe 10% of the cases. And in that 10%, you don't want those clients anyway.
Right.
They're a waste of time. They're your time wasters. So taking a look at that throughput process, and we will give you some verbiage today, and we'll maybe do a role play to show you how to go about having a conversation with a client to get them to pay you more money for their tax return. So we can do that. Now, you look at your throughput process, I know, Andy, and you just told me a story about somebody in your throughput process. You want to share it with everybody?
So many stories. I mean, so I'm a college planner, and a big part of our business is similar to being an accountant because we file, we meaning my wife and her assistant, file about 300 something financial aid applications, 300 something families worth of financial aid applications each year. So our throughput process is similar in many respects, but also there's some key differences with accountants. And I'll tell you, first thing I started thinking about when you were talking was, the first profit leak that we plugged was by raising our prices by 40% across the board, just to give us some more budget, to play with.
How'd that work for you?
Literally no blowback, and we had our, we had our biggest year ever this past year after we did that. And again, it gave us more budget to play with in terms of staff, in terms of marketing, to bring in more business. We started billing on value as opposed to, well, we always did, but we realized our value was greater and had nothing to do with how much time we put in on the, which I know is a big thing with accountants, hourly billing rate. I'm a lawyer by training, so that was ingrained in me also. But clients don't care about how many hours; they just want a result. So that was one of the biggest changes. You and I were talking, I guess, yesterday about a client that we fired. Pearl and I actually went out to dinner last night to celebrate because the client cashed the check. So I was like, all right, let's go out to a steakhouse and had champagne and everything. That was fun. So we could talk about that a little bit. But I think what we realized was that most of the problems in terms of the profit leaks were really based on our expectations and communications to our clients, meaning we were good about communicating that, but we didn't repeat it enough. We didn't drill it into their heads about here's what it takes to be a good client of ours. And Pearl, my wife, is an attorney also. She was a prosecutor in Queens County, and the first department she worked in was called intake. So that was all about getting the right information, setting up the file. So what we decided to do a couple of years ago was we hired an assistant, and her main job was to make sure that everything on our needs list, when a client hires us, the first step is they hire us on our website that we send them to, and then they get an automatic, congratulations, here's what we need from you now. And it's a quick questionnaire. It's a list of items that we need. And those things go to our assistant. And usually there's one or two things missing. There's always additional information that's required. That file doesn't go anywhere up to my wife until all of those items have been checked off. And then we have a bunch of other belt and suspender things in there. One of the differences between filing financial aid forms and a tax return is that a lot of families will apply to 10 or 12 or 15 colleges, and they don't all require the same information. Some require more than others. So there's a lot more information gathering after the initial intake. And then after you file the applications, unlike a tax return, then there's more stuff that happens afterward. A lot of questions come in from those colleges that you filed to. So there's a lot more, kind of nickel and dime stuff that happens. But that's part of the process too. And we kind of drill it into our clients' heads multiple times in the beginning and throughout, that here's what it takes. You've got to respond to us within 48 hours. You've got to give us a written list on our form of the colleges that you want us to send your applications to, because that's always a leak, And if you want everything filed on time by your deadlines, then the last chance to get this information to us is 72 hours ahead of time, because we want to guarantee that we can do the job that you hired us for and get you all the money that you're entitled to get. But if you miss a deadline, that could be in jeopardy. So the best way to do this is to follow our system and get everything to us 3 days before. Wait, you're mute. You are muted for some reason. Hold on. Did you mute yourself?
Good.
Now you okay. Say that one more time.
You're so much nicer about it than I am.
Well, I don't talk to them. This is all in writing, and
Yeah, and you're an attorney, so it's going to be fun. The interesting thing is that I say the biggest fear partners have in accounting firms is losing a client, and you need to let go of that fear, because let me give you a clue: clients are terrified of changing accountants.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a very difficult emotional thing to switch CPA firms.
The pain in the ass if you're the client. Yeah,
and you don't know how to properly choose the next one, so you sometimes go from the frying pan to the fire.
By the way, I'm sorry to interrupt, but if you're on the flip side, if you're a CPA and you're trying to get a client away from another firm, if that's why they came to you in the first place, I would be thinking about every which way possible I could make them see how easy it is, what you're going to do to grease the skids and make it a frictionless what's the right word? Transition. Yeah.
Yeah, transition. It's funny. A lot of what we did in the past, when I was selling clients to accounting firms, going out and finding clients that wanted a different type of accounting firm, one of the biggest stumbling blocks was getting them to let go of their old accountant.
Yeah.
So we actually created tools and methods and processes that
I bet.
during the discovery process, we actually set it up to make it easy for them to to transition their accountants.
Good.
And we can talk about that at another workshop.
Yeah, that's a good one.
But in going on with the throughput process, just as an example, I'd like to do a sample role play with you. As you are a client and I'm the CPA.
Yep.
We work together. So Andy, hi, it's Neil Guilmette from Dewey, Cheatham and Howe. We've been working with you as your accountants for now about 5 or 6 years. And I'm calling because I'd like to get some feedback from you as to how you feel about us relationship-wise on a scale of 1 to 10. We've been your accountant. Where do we fit in on that scale?
Oh, you're a 10.
Really?
Yeah.
What makes you say that?
Well, you always let me send my stuff to you last minute, and you always drop everything for me, and you're always there for me. And I just love working with you guys.
That's great. And I'm glad that we're a 10 and that you've rated us as a 10. One of the problems I have, and one of the reasons that I called, is that as a client, I would have to give you a rating of somewhere around a 4 or a 5. And let me tell you why I give you a 4 or a 5. You do pay us promptly, all right? And you do give us clean information when you give it to us. But the problem is we have to chase you for it. And you do bring it in at the last minute. And I know you appreciate the fact that you've been bringing it in at the last minute and we've been putting up with it. But here's the problem that we have. We have a factory process to run and a throughput process to run. And when clients don't bring us the information in a timely manner, it creates a bottleneck in our throughput process. Now that has big ramifications for us because we have deadlines and we have staff, and we know pretty well how much work our staff can possibly do to get those deadline paperwork out. And what happens when we have to chase you and 10 or 20 other clients is we end up with a bottleneck. Now we end up having to pay staff overtime because the bottleneck is jammed. We have to pay overtime. Staff is unhappy about it. They don't really want to work Saturdays and Sundays. They don't want to work till midnight, which is typical in many accounting firms. But they have to because we have to get the work out the door. So what we're going to suggest, Andy, is that we love having you as a client, as a person, but the way you're working with us isn't working for us. So we have a couple of options for you. Number one, we can double your fee or maybe triple it, and you can continue to operate just the way you've been operating. Or you can get us the information when we need it and have it to us by a deadline and agree to a deadline. And if you miss that deadline, expect a surcharge because it's creating more work for us. Or option number 3 is we can help you find another accounting firm. Which of those would you prefer?
All right. I'll take door number 2.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Door number 2. And the bottom line is, I would argue that in my 40 years of experience doing this with CPA firms, probably less than 10% of the clients pick another accounting firm.
Right.
So, number one, you get a double bang. Number one, you reduce your frustration and you lighten up the load and you get your workload smoothed out and you make a lot more money.
Yeah.
You make a lot more money. You can double your fees. You just said it. You raised yours by 40%. Stay right there. So you can actually double your fees. But that little role play is called controlled conversation. And until I tell you that you're a 5 on a scale of 1 to 10, I want to make you sure that you say that I'm a 10.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, there was so much in there that was so I really love how you almost guilted the client into, well, let me explain things that you don't know about. Let me bring you to this awareness. I thought that was great. I would even say, and we try to do this in a different way. We try to do this ahead of time. right? So there's I guess a technique in copywriting called the negative strip line. It's also a negotiating tactic, and pretty much what that looks like before someone hires us, and this is language on our website and also delivered in my presentations, is here who should not hire us, who do not hire us if, and it'll specify things like, well, if you are always doing things at the last minute and you need constant reminders and babysitting and drama and this, and I list those out sort of differently, you're not a good fit for us, so take a pass. If you are a helicopter parent and you do everything for your kid and you don't let them do anything, I have all these other things too, but I think that also helps set expectations in the beginning. And you can always say, you remember, Mr. Client, in the beginning when we talked about expectations we should have of each other, and I said blah blah blah. I said this is what you can expect from us. Well, right now it's not looking like that. You're not living up to that, and that's becoming an issue because of all the the reasons that you said. So we have that ahead of time when someone hires us, in the marketing materials before they check out, and click hire. And then after they hire us, they get an automatic sequence of, okay, here's what happens next, with a reminder about that.
Yep.
And even started to send out a written letter. I mean, my printer sends it out, but that's part of our automated sequence where the letter goes to my printer. He sends it out, number 10 envelope with our return address on there. And it's called an operator's manual, how to work with Lockwood College Prep. And it says in the beginning, we're so thrilled to work with you. And just a reminder here, so now we're touching them online and offline. So there's no escaping everything. So they're hearing it drilled into their head probably 5 times in the first 2 weeks of hiring us, and even before they hire us.
We do the same thing with my selling without selling process. One of the big things is managing expectations, and there are several areas in that process where we do exactly what you said. We make sure the client understands, for instance, that we don't want a client that's not willing to change, because we are different, and if you're not willing to change, we're not right for each other. How do you feel about change? And number 2,
and by the way, who's ever going to say, no, I don't want to change? I mean, that's why they're having the conversation anyway. So it's almost shaming them into, what's the other reason? What's the other alternative? None.
Well, putting a skunk on a table too. I mean, you can become a next like that. If you don't
why would someone even have a conversation with a potential new, consultant or accountant or whatever, unless they wanted to change something?
Well, they do and they don't, but there are 4 keys that I discovered over 40 years of selling selling accounting relationship. There are 4 things that killed, one of 4 or several of 4 things that killed every accounting relationship. Number 1, the client was resistant to change. Mm-hmm. Now, they could say they're willing to change,
right,
but then they don't.
Of course, 2 different things.
Right.
Yeah.
The second one is an expectation that we're going to come in and in 3 months, we're going to turn around a company that's been in business for 15 years doing things backwards.
Right.
So they have to be aware that it's going to take time, and they have to acknowledge that, and they have to accept, for instance, you may spend the first 5 years with us with 5 years of constant small changes. Are you willing to do that? Because if you're not willing to commit that kind of time, let's not waste each other's time. The third one is you need to be prepared to make a serious investment. And without making a serious investment, you can't expect a serious result.
Right.
We have other verbiage that goes with it. I won't bother with it right now. And the fourth one is you need to be willing to allow us to hold you accountable, to implement the strategies that we mutually agree are going to get you where you want to go. Right. And once we get those agreements, now I can come to you and say, Andy, when we first sat down together and agreed to work together, you agreed to be held accountable to implement.
Yep.
And we talked about strategies 3 months ago and 2 months ago, and you haven't implemented a damn thing. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. But you need to let us know right now. If you're not going to implement, we would just as soon help you find another accounting firm. Right. Because I'm not going to sit here 6 months from now and have you tell me, wow, none of this stuff worked because you didn't implement.
Exactly.
I'm not going to have that happen.
Yeah. It's
So
constant reinforcement. Yeah.
Which would you prefer?
Yeah.
You know, the column on the left or the box on the right. And we're perfectly happy to leave. And for those CPAs that are listening in today, you need to let your clients know that you're perfectly happy to help them find another accounting firm at any time. That's even your best clients. Because unless you have that position, unless you behave in that manner, you will always be subservient to your clients.
Yeah.
You will always be a supplicant to the clients. They will always treat you like a vendor.
Yeah, and you're not. You're the guru. You're the prize. And I think that those expectations, they've got to be set and you have to remind them of them constantly.
Yep.
Here's what you can expect from us, and here's what we expect from you. That's literally the two sections of my welcome letter.
And we also have a letter of agreement that we follow up with.
Yep. Over
those things in writing. And we go over it with them and they stick it in their file. Now look, let's go over this item by it. It's not an engagement letter.
Mm-hmm.
It's an addendum to an engagement letter. But we want to go over it with them item by item to remind them.
I would even go as far, I think we do this actually, I'm going to double check, is to have them initial. Client understands that he is to provide information within at the latest 72 hours of request.
Oh yeah, no, we get a client signature on it. We sign it and we get a client signature. Yeah. Because that way I can roll it up into a baseball bat and hit him over the head with it.
Yeah, metaphorically.
Metaphorically, of course.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's been one of the biggest problems that accountants have is managing their own throughput process.
Right.
There are several other things that happen along that way. But one of the other big things that accountants do poorly in general is the throughput process of billing and collections.
Mm.
And I have a belief that in God we trust, everybody else pays cash.
Yeah.
So I tell my accountants, stop sending out invoices and start getting paid up front.
Yeah, exactly.
Why bother?
Yeah.
Now let me flip to the other side of that coin. If you think about it, you can bring tremendous value to your clients by taking a look at their throughput process.
Yes.
And a great exercise to do is sit down with a client and say, let's take a piece of paper and draw a line. Mm-hmm. And together we're going to write down every step in your throughput process from intake to delivery of product. Mm-hmm. We want to put down every step. And once we put down every step, I want to know who's accountable for and who's responsible for what. Because I've come to believe that when everybody is responsible for everything, no one's accountable for anything.
Yeah.
Simple. So there has to be accountability and responsibility. And a great way to take a look at actually really helping your clients improve their profitability is look at their throughput process and find the bottlenecks for them. And even if you go out and interview staff people and sit out in their factory and find the bottlenecks, you look like a superstar. And there's a direct correlation to profitability. There's a direct correlation to quality of life. There's a direct correlation to burden of management. And there's a direct correlation to the actual market value of the company.
Yep. I would even go as far. I mean, we do this in our practice. I would go far as to do that annually, looking at your throughput process. So when we did this last year, we my wife and I sat down, for a couple hours on our dining room table, and put poster board together with literally everything that happens from once the client hires us to all the way through the end of the relationship with the client.
I it all out, absolutely.
And that was like this, 6 foot long thing, and we figured out who does what, and that helped us conceive where we needed help and who we should hire and where we could beef up more communications. And we have a software that allows me to send out different messages upon different milestones. So, for example, once we file a financial aid application, Pearl, my wife, will tag that in our software. The client gets a tag that says, filed. And then they get a sequence of, okay, you're filed. Here's what happens next. Here's what you should expect. And there's a little bit of information because we based on all the questions and concerns that we get over and over again, we know what we're anticipating, what they're going to be asking us. So we do that, and that cuts down on probably 80 to 85% of the questions and stress that clients have after, because there's also
more than that. It's a tremendous differentiator,
right,
from the competition.
Yeah.
All right. That it just and for CPAs, keeping the clients informed as you go along. Even with, again, if you have a software program that can send out regular letters, keeping them informed. I've even hired in several firms a client relationship manager, and their job is to reach out and touch those clients on a constant basis, just to make them aware of we're there, whether we're actually doing any work or not. And
we're doing something. Sorry to interrupt. We do this a Facebook show every month for our clients also. In addition to the one-on-one, say, here's what it's literally every month. Here's what you need to be doing now, and that's another way to reach out. And I just got a text, from a client yesterday. It was like, my wife told me to watch this, so I put it on the 60-inch screencast, and we watched you, in the family movie theater. And it was like the best show you've ever done, and it makes them feel like they're getting more value, and it's another differentiator. And it's just easy to reach everyone at once. Even if we get, 20 people on, maybe 100 something total who view it on replay, just the fact that we're doing it is different. Not that they necessarily watch it, but we can always say, look, I reminded you, this is what we need to happen. These, check your deadlines, whatever. So you're not, you can't hang your hat on saying something like, well, we never heard from you. What happened? We hired you. Because we used to get comments like that a few years ago, occasionally from some clients, and so we started doing this to cover our asses.
You don't want to let them fall through the cracks. They need to feel the love, whether you're doing any work for them or not. They need to feel the love.
And we're not chasing. We are saying this is how we are going to communicate to you.
Right.
So just understand this before you sign up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. As far as the throughput process goes, I would suggest that all the CPAs listening, pick out one client, pick out one of your better clients, and meet with them and go through their throughput process one step at a time. I think you'd be amazed at what you find. And I think you'd be amazed at the value you're capable of delivering with that exercise.
Not for nothing, that could lead to a different engagement, more of a consulting, a new revenue stream for you.
Absolutely. That's how you go about. That's the tool that we use to generate additional revenue streams through the discovery process. That's another whole set of lessons in using discovery to generate additional revenue.
Great. All right. Well, why don't we wrap up here, and we'll table that discussion. I think we came up with 2 or 3 other topics during this half hour.
Yeah.
So this is great. I hope anyone listening and watching found this to be valuable. And Neil, how do people reach out to you if they want more information?
Neil at cpanetwork.org, or call me 631-513-3309. It's my cell phone. I answer it.
And you can always pop in a comment right here on if you're watching this on Facebook or LinkedIn or where we're seeing this. We monitor that also.
Or text me.
All right.
Thank you again for your time. Those of you that were here today, I hope you had a great time. I hope you learned a lot, and we'll be back.
All right. Bye-bye.